Edgar Allan Poe. Episode 8, Distance in Learning and Teaching, Oh My. Who was Edgar Allan Poe? Edgar Allan Poe was one of the most influential authors of the 19th century in America. He was one of the first authors to attempt to live exclusively by his writing alone. Poe wrote about the horrors of life, much of which he experienced firsthand, and he is known as the father of the detective story. To this day, Edgar Allan Poe continues to haunt readers with his spine-tingling short stories and poems. I became insane with long intervals of horrible sanity. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe's traumatic childhood. Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts. In 1810, his father, David Poe Jr., abandoned his wife, Elizabeth Eliza Poe, and their 3 young children. On December 8, 1811, Eliza died from tuberculosis, leaving Edgar, his older brother, William Henry Leonard, and their younger sister, Rosalie, orphaned. It is rumored that David died from the same disease just 3 days after Eliza on December 11, 1811. The Poe children were split up. Henry stayed with their parental grandparents, Rosalie stayed with the Mackenzie family, and Edgar stayed with John and Frances Fanny Allen, though they never did adopt him. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. Edgar Allan Poe. The Allan Family. Edgar's foster father, John Allan, was a wealthy merchant, and like Edgar, he was an orphan. Frances Fanny Allen was very close to Edgar, but John struggled to connect with him. In fact, he felt Edgar was spoiled and ungrateful, which would lead to further problems in their relationship down the road. The Allan family moved to England between the years of 1815 to 1820 for John's business, and Poe received a wonderful education. On July 27, 1820, the Allan family moved back to Richmond, Virginia, because John's business plans failed. In November of 1824, Poe wrote his first poem when he was 15, and this became an area of contention for him and John. Believe nothing you hear, and only one half that you see. Edgar Allan Poe. College and family problems. After an argument with John Allan about his lack of compassion for Fanny's illness, tuberculosis, Poe went off to college. On February 14, 1826, he enrolled midway through the year at the University of Virginia. In March of 1827, John and Edgar continued to battle over money. Edgar racked up over $2,000 in gambling debt, and John refused to help Edgar pay off the debt. In order to escape debtor's prison, Edgar dropped out of college and enlisted in the military under a pseudonym, Edgar A. Perry. Inevitably, Fanny's tuberculosis consumed her, and she died on February 28, 1829. Poe was able to get leave from the army and attended her funeral. On April 15, 1829, Poe was appointed to the U.S. Academy, West Point. John Allan was finally proud of Edgar, though Poe's time there was short-lived. Years of love have been forgot in the hatred of a minute. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar A. Poe's independence. In 1831, Poe grew tired of the military and he was kicked out of West Point. This upset John Allan and he disowned Edgar. On August 1st, 1831, Edgar's older brother Henry died at the age of 27. Many believe his death was attributed to either cholera or tuberculosis. In 1835, Poe moved back to Boston to live with his Aunt Maria Clem and her 12-year-old daughter, Virginia Clem. During that time, Edgar actively pursued his writing career and accepted a job as a magazine editor at the Southern Literary Messenger. On May 16, 1836, Edgar married his almost 13-year-old cousin, Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia. In 1837, Poe moved Virginia and her mother, his Aunt Maria, to New York. He hoped that the move would lead to success in writing, though it didn't. We loved with a love that was more than love. Edgar Allan Poe. Poe's early writing career. In July of 1838, Poe wrote and published his first and only novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, though he did not find success with this novel. From July of 1839 until June of 1840, Edgar accepted another magazine editor position for Burton's Gentleman's Magazine. Later in 1840, Poe published a 2-volume story collection entitled Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, which also did not give him the fame he desired. In April of 1841, Poe once again became an editor at Graham's Magazine, where he worked until 1842. During this time, Poe published The Murders in the Rue Morgue in Graham's Magazine, which is the first detective story ever written. Words have no power to impress the mind without the exquisite horror of their reality. Edgar Allan Poe. Poe's fame and heartache. In January of 1842, Poe's wife Virginia sang a song at the piano and coughed up blood. Tragically, like so many of Edgar's loved ones, she had contracted tuberculosis. Edgar struggled to live solely by his writing, and in November of 1843, he became a lecturer on poetry. Though he was incredibly popular, his drinking intensified as Virginia's illness worsened. In April of 1844, with hopes of a more steady income, Poe moved his wife and her mother back to New York to take an editor position at yet another magazine, The Evening Mirror. In 1845, as Virginia's illness steadily progressed, Poe faced losing his wife as he had lost his mother, father, and brother. The despair he struggled with on a daily basis led him to write his most famous poem of all time, The Raven. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary. Edgar Allan Poe. The Raven and Death. The Raven is a prophetic poem where the speaker is haunted by a raven over his lost Lenore, his one true love. The raven continuously speaks only one word, nevermore, terrorizing the speaker through his grief. The poem was wildly successful and offered Poe the fame he had yearned for, though his readers did not know his dark secret. Like the speaker in the poem, Poe would soon know the sorrow of losing his one true love, Virginia. On January 30th, 1847, Virginia succumbed to her battle with tuberculosis in the home they shared in the Bronx. Edgar's alcoholism went into a downward spiral, and many of his friends believed he was going insane with grief, much like the speaker in The Raven. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. Edgar Allan Poe. Spiraling out of control. After the loss of Virginia, Poe struggled with being alone, and he wrote many love letters to the women he was courting. Many of the love letters were copied and not original. In November of 1848, Poe proposed to poet Sarah Helen Whitman, who agreed to marry him only if he cleaned up his drinking problem. 1 month later, Whitman called off the engagement, though, because Edgar could not live up to his promise. His drinking only worsened. In August of 1849, Poe proposed to his childhood sweetheart, Elmira Royster Shelton, and he joined the Sons of Temperance, which is like Alcoholics Anonymous. Elmira was the last woman Edgar was betrothed to before his mysterious death. Deep in earth my love is lying, and I must weep alone. Edgar Allan Poe. A mysterious death. Poe was scheduled to travel to Philadelphia to edit a book of poetry by poet Mrs. St. Leon Loud, though his physician friend John Carter advised him not to travel. Poe decided to travel, though he was not feeling well, and somehow ended up in Baltimore, Maryland, instead of Philadelphia. On October 3, 1849, a man by the name of Joseph W. Walker found Poe semi-conscious in a gutter by a tavern. The tavern was a polling site for voting, and many believe Poe was a victim of cooping, kidnapping strangers, drugging them, and forcing them to vote. On October 7, 1849, Poe died from unknown causes. Though there are many theories as to what caused his death, we may never know the truth. Regardless of the cause, Edgar Allan Poe's death will forever remain his greatest mystery. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight over him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Edgar Allan Poe. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. TTFN, ta-ta for now.